Hi, welcome to Drawing with Mr. Hutch, Christmas episode number 1. So all this week I'm going to be just doing Christmas drawings, and I have a request for the Polar Express as a wintry Christmas idea. This is great because a train uses lots of 3D shapes that we've been practicing, cylinders and cubes. And this drawing is also going to use a 1-point perspective for the train. The trick, though, with this 1-point perspective today is that the vanishing point, it's actually off of the page. So I'm going to show you how that works in just a second. So today, what we're going to need is a pencil, a ruler, and a eraser. And then once we're all done, you feel free to completely color it up however you'd like. All right. So we're going to have a few planning lines for this drawing. This video might be a little longer than usual, but you can fast forward through different parts if you feel like you know what's going on. So, like I said, we're going to start with a 1-point perspective for this train, and it's actually going to occur off of the page. So the way that works is we're going to kind of pick a point off of our page over here. Now this is going to be a little tricky for some of you, but we're going to kind of take our point, let's say right there, about halfway down the page vertically. And if we, let's put our eraser there as a point of reference. And what I'd like you to do is we're going to draw a line starting the ruler touching that the eraser, and then we're going to draw on a diagonal, and it's going to go right down to the corner of the page here that's almost off of the book. So we're going to draw nice and lightly and follow along as you can here. And it's going to go down to this corner, and we're going to go off the page about a ruler's length. So bring my camera down here so you can see. Or about a ruler's width from the bottom of the page. You can make a little mark there, and that's where our line is going to end up. Okay. So now we're going to go back to our eraser. And we're going to draw another line, and it's going to end on this side of the page. Let's go up about a ruler's width from the top, and that's where we want it to go off of the page. So we'll make a little mark there. Okay, hopefully you haven't moved your eraser, and you can kind of try to line up your ruler from your eraser. And I'll eyeball it over to this pencil line here. Doesn't have to be perfect. These are just our planning lines. Okay, so that's what we want to start with. A 1-point perspective, planning lines, just like we've done in the past when we did our pumpkin patches. Some of you did some 1-point perspective streets last year. But with this, instead of the vanishing point being on the page, we're going to have it off of the page. And I'll show you why we did that in just a second. So this is going to be our train track down here, and this is going to be the top of our train. Okay, so what we need to now do is we're going to draw another line that's going to show kind of where the top of our train wheels are, the wheels on the train. All right, so here we're going to do another planning line about a ruler's width above the bottom planning line on the side. Just take that, make a mark there, and then we're going to go over here, and this is going to go, it's going to end right above this planning line here. If you got a ruler, let's do about a centimeter, or about a half a finger's width. So we're going to go from this line that was ruler's width above the bottom planning line, and it's going to connect to this line that is about a centimeter above, about half a centimeter, I guess, above this line. Okay, there we are. Now, our train's not going to go all the way through the page. We're going to have the front of the page starting about here. And what we need to show the front of the train is we need to draw a circle for the front of the Polar Express, okay? So we don't want it to go right off the page. We're going to back up and we're going to draw that circle right about here. Okay, so it is a three-dimensional cylinder. So that circle is going to look a little bit squashed this way. Okay, so there's the front of our train. Now we're going to finish off this cylinder here. This is the first part of the train, the engine. And then let's do the other end of our cylinder here. So it will look like we've got a cylinder on its side. All right. Now, next, we're going to draw the car part of the engine where the engineer will be sitting. It's going to start right about here, and we're going to draw a cube along this 1-point perspective. A rectangular prism is more accurate because it's going to be longer than it is high. And it's going to be a little bit higher than this cylinder. So it's going to come up here and then have a bit of a rounded top to it. Okay. All right, and then we're going to follow our planning line back to the back part of the car. Okay. And there we've got the cab part of the engine where the engineer will be sitting. And then behind that, we're going to draw another car, and it's going to follow right along our planning lines, just like that. Okay, and then straight. And then we're going to be able to see one last car here that's just coming off the page. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3 rectangular prisms. This one, the cab, goes just above our planning line. And then we've got a cylinder in the front here to show the front of the train. Okay, on top of the front of the train, we need a exhaust where the smoke from the train is going to puff up. And that's going to be a cylinder on top of the cylinder. So let's start with a shape like that. And then the top, it's going to be rounded. The bottom goes into the cylinder, so we really can't see it. For the smoke from the train. Okay, one of the biggest features of the Polar Express is the big light on the front. So right in the middle of this squashed circle, we're going to draw another squashed circle. And by squashed, I mean it's just a little bit oval. It's a little bit taller than it is wide. And that's going to be our light, where our light comes from. And then we're going to give another circle in there that just shows some of the rivets and things that are holding this train all together. All right. Next, let's draw some circles for the wheels of the train. Now, these circles are going to start big, but as they go in the back, they're going to get smaller, and we're going to follow along with our planning lines here. So that first wheel we're going to do is going to be right here. Okay. And then we're just going to do a finger space, and we're going to do another wheel, and they're going to just try to follow along, and they're going to just get smaller and smaller as we go. And they're also going to start to look like they get closer together because of the perspective. So They're getting smaller and closer together. They're not overlapping. They're getting closer and closer together and smaller right off the page. Okay. Let's fix the shape of this one. A little bit too big there. Now, another thing that the trains are pretty popular for is this front grille. Some call it a cow catcher. There's cows on the tracks. This thing just kind of catches the cow and pushes it to the side. And so that's going to be, it's almost like a diamond shape coming off the front of the train. So let's go down from the train like that, out in front like that. We'll angle up towards this other planning line that we have like that, and then back into the circle front part of the train like that. All right, so I think now we're ready to erase some of our planning lines and start to see the real shape of this train. All right, I don't love this circle that I made here. I don't think it's quite the right shape, and I'm actually going to redraw my light as well. So I don't feel like I did the right shape. So good thing I got my eraser. Needed to be a little bit more squashed. And same with this shape. It needs to be a little bit more squashed. Maybe yours looks good and you don't need to change it. All right. So let's go along. We can get rid of some of these planning lines. We can get rid of this part of the top planning line. Don't need it. We can go down here to the bottom and get rid of these two planning lines here. We're done with those. So now we have a clean, nice front of our train here. Now let's go to our exhaust pipe here. We can get rid of the two lines that come in to the cylinder, because it's actually sitting up on top of that cylinder, just like that. Now to the back of the big cylinder shape here, we can erase this inside shape here and this part of the cab of the engine. So it looks like it's just goes right into that cab. Take care of some of these planning lines at the top of the cab, just like that. And then we can go down and just erase some of the planning lines between our wheels. All right. So let's now darken up some of these lines that we're going to keep. So erase this part of the chimney on this train as well, because that would be on the other side. We wouldn't be able to see that. All right. So hopefully you followed along. You have this really good looking basic shapes now of your train. Now we're going to add in some of the details. All right. So these train cars, we're going to need some, we want some windows on them. Okay. So let's use our rulers, and we want to try to follow along with the angle of our planning lines that we had to create some rectangular shapes that will be our windows. So let's start here in the cab. And you can kind of follow along with the lines that we built this cab off of. So there's an angle like that at the top. So just slide your ruler down. Your vertical lines will be straight. Right? There's a window in the cab. Now you can follow these lines that you created for this window to the next car. And add a window there. And then just keep going and add a tiny window on that last car. All right. Maybe you even want to split these windows on the car here into two, so it looks like there's two windows, just for some variety. Change it up a little bit. All right. Now, how about these wheels? Let's darken up these wheels a little bit. And they're actually going to have some spokes through them. Okay. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to do a vertical line, we're going to do a horizontal line, and then we're going to do an X through the middle. And that will create the spokes of our train wheels. A plus sign, and then a multiplication sign. Sharpen up my pencil a little bit. Sign, multiplication sign. Plus sign, multiplication sign. We could also think of it as a T and an X. All right, so those are starting to look like train wheels now. Liking that. All right, a few more details here. Let's add a strip of rivets along the front of this train. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the same contour of the cylinder, just like this. We're going to do one strip of rivets in front of the exhaust, or the stove pipe, the chimney. And these rivets are just going to be little circles all the way down this contour curved line that we just created, just like that. Okay, and then let's do one on the other side of the chimney. Right, and our rivets. This helps to make it look more realistic. This train is held together with rivets and steel. And then let's have a seam along the cylinder that goes this way. And it just kind of comes along like this. And it's a little bit tapered at this end because we're using our 1-point perspective. So it gets a little bit wider as we come to this end. Choo-choo. Okay, starting to look really good. Now let's put a thin line of rivets just along the top part of this cab because it just comes up above the regular cab box cars a little bit. A little bit of a definition there. All right. Now we're going to deal with this cow catcher on the front, our grill. This is a bit of a tricky perspective to do, but just follow along with me. This is the front point of this catcher, and what we're going to make it look like is that there's bars, individual bars going this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw from, if you're thinking about this, you don't have to draw this line, but think about like this is the center of the top of the cylinder. We're going to draw a shape that comes down from the center here that goes right to the point here, and it's just going to be a tapered. Tapered means it's thinner at one end, like that. All right, now we're going to do another one over here. And one last one over here. Okay, and then we're going to do another one on here. And I think I'm just going to change the angle of this to be a little bit different. It's just going to come over like this instead. Didn't quite have that angle correct. Take away that line there. All right. There's our cow catcher on the front of our train. All right, it's coming along very, very nicely. So I think we need to add a little bit of detail in here to the front of the train. So I'm going to add a line of rivets that go on the inside of this circle that's on the front of the train. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a cap to the chimney here. So we're going to kind of go out on a diagonal line like that. And then we're going to connect those two diagonal lines with a curved line that follows the same curve as that. Okay. Now, one other thing that this Polar Express has on it is a bell. It has a bell right next to the chimney on the top. So let's draw a bell shape. So a bell shape starts like a rainbow and then flips, kind of comes out at the bottom, almost like a dress. And then we're going to connect those lines together. So there's our bell, but the bell can't just float. It's got to be connected to something. So let's put a little top on it, and then let's connect it to a little frame that just kind of comes down like this and connects right on to the top of the Polar Express. Okay. Great. There's our train flying through the middle of nowhere. So what do we need to do? We need to put this in some sort of environment. So let's create some wintry looking Christmas trees and give it a bit of an environment. Okay. So just follow along. You could do as you please, put the trees where you please. I'm going to put them some in front, some behind, and we'll work it out from there. Fit my whole book in here for you guys. Horizon line here. Probably can't see it, but right up there. Size. Size contrast and distance. Smaller trees are farther away than the bigger trees. Right. That's snowdrift lines. I guess I actually shouldn't have erased this bottom planning line because we actually need to put that back in there because that's the train track. I'm gonna add that back in there. And then we're going to need the other train track, which will be just there. Pick that up a little bit. And this line up a little, where it's going to taper, so it won't look as thick down at this end. Give a little bit of value to this cow catcher. I'm going to leave those shapes that we drew in there as white. So it looks like this is more like a grill. Those are the spaces between the metal. All right. Give a little bit of shadow to some of the parts that will be low. And we're going to say that this is in the moonlight. So let's draw some wispy clouds, light lines, a little, well, not a little moon, maybe a big moon. Put some clouds in front of it, makes it look further into the distance. And I'm just going to add a little bit of value here and there. To help it give the drawing the feeling of 3 dimensions. Some of these circles to clean it up a little bit. Give this light a little bit of lines just to give it that feeling. A little shimmer on these windows, reflection lines. Right. So I think that this is a you know what, actually I'm going to just do one more thing, add in a shape that we're a little familiar with, who've been following along. Let's just add in a big old present here in the foreground. It's a giant, giant present. Okay, and we're going to add some wrap in, some ribbon to it. And put a little bow here on top. And there is our first drawing with Mr. Hutch, Christmas drawing, the Polar Express. Thanks so much for following along with me. I hope you enjoyed the drawing today. I'd love to see your versions of the Polar Express, how you colored it, how you changed the details that I did. Nothing has to be the same as mine. We're all our own artists. So I hope you enjoyed following along. Tune in. There'll be another Christmas drawing for you to follow along with tomorrow. Thanks very much. Have a great day.